I am from Iowa, from northwest Iowa, and our county is primarily agriculturally based. We have a lot of pork and beef producers, packing plants. We have dairies, poultry operations. And you're probably wondering, what is somebody who is not a border county doing here to speak on immigration? And at first I questioned whether or not I should come on this trip, but then talking to my county attorney, because we work together on this quite a bit, I did feel like it was important for you to hear what's going on in our county. We're not a big county, 33,000 people, but we are right in the middle of the United States, and it's important for you to know a little bit what's going on even there. One of the issues that we have going on over there in our county is just the lack of knowing who the people are. When our officers stop a vehicle, they oftentimes have no documentation, the illegal immigrants, and that's very problematic for us. If you all remember the Oklahoma City bombing, the perpetrator of that act, McVeigh, was stopped by a traffic violation. So if somebody is saying, well, all you have is a traffic violator there and you can't identify, that's not a big issue. For us it is in law enforcement. We have arrested some of those folks and have found out later that they've been murder suspects in other states, they've been wanted, they've been sex offenders. So that kind of issue is very important to us. We're starting to see the influx of gangs in our communities. Where I come from, a gang used to be the local football team on a Friday night and their girlfriends hanging around on a street corner. That's different now. We're seeing the drug influx come into our counties. We're seeing more violent crime. We generally have been a very safe county for folks. There's a lot of folks in our county, believe it or not, that will go on vacation for 2 to 3 weeks, leave their houses unlocked. A lot of people still go uptown with their keys in their car in the ignition. And that is changing over the years. We've had a number of stabbings. About 4 or 5 years ago, we had a triple homicide shooting, and it took us half the day to even identify who the victims were. Even family members who had been living with some of these illegal immigrants did not know who they were because identity situations. Or somebody mentioned up here this morning about guilt. That's a thing that has really bothered me as sheriff. I've had in my county, because of some of the deportations going on, we've had a number of the businesses upset because a lot of their employees were leaving. The ones that were deported and then ones that became fearful and left. And there were about 200 people that got together a meeting and came to our board of supervisors to put pressure on them, saying the sheriff and the sheriff's office and the county attorney were racially profiling, were racists, and that one really bothered me. I'm a parent of 7 children. 4 of those children are adopted internationally from 3 different countries. That one bothered me. I have different races within my own home. I've paid a lot of my own money to go through the immigration process, to bring them into my home. It is not about race. As Congressman King says, it's a rule of law. My job as a sheriff is to protect my community. If I have somebody in my community that is not supposed to be there legally, and as this group has wanted me to do, I just write them a ticket because they say their name is so-and-so. Okay, I write them a ticket and let them go. If a week later, they're in just a basic traffic accident, not even a drunk driving accident, but they're in a traffic accident and they end up killing somebody, I believe that's on my shoulders. That's my fault because I was supposed to do something about that person that was there illegally. As far as the border being unsafe, I have a couple of examples of that. We had one young man who was deported 5 different times, and he came back into our community. One of the local Catholic churches found him as being a homeless juvenile, is what he said. They brought him to one of our social service agencies, one of the employees of that agency took this gentleman into their home to help him out, only to walk into her 5-year-old daughter's room later that week and find him sexually abusing the daughter. He was not a juvenile. He was in his 20s, and he was later convicted of the crime. Another thing that we have in my community that maybe some of the other counties here don't have so much, we have a lot of identity theft going on. Here's a typical example of identity theft, one that we had just a couple of weeks ago. We had a Hispanic citizen from Texas, a mother of a disabled daughter, call us. And she said, I use my Social Security check to care for my daughter. And Social Security agency said, I have earned so much money up there in Iowa. She said, I've never been to Iowa. I don't know where Iowa is. And as Congressman King can attest, I can imagine people don't come to our state for the wonderful winters. But in the course of our investigation, we found that her Social Security number was being used at a pork processing plant in my county by a 15-year-old girl who was an illegal immigrant. Her father also worked in the plant. Initially, we had nowhere to go with this girl because nobody would take her. ICE wouldn't take her. Our local state juvenile court system wouldn't take her. And as the officers know here, we can't deal with the juvenile. We don't, in our own jail, we can't put them in our jail other than for a certain period of time, which is about 24 hours. And eventually she admitted to us that her father worked at the plant. He was later arrested. They were both working. He was forcing her to work because they had to pay the amount of money, I believe it was roughly $15,000, to get brought up into our county. That kind of thing goes on quite often. We get calls from many other states of their Social Security number being used in our county. And some of the people that have argued against me and our agency about what we're doing, making us feel guilty about being, quote, racists, they don't hear the stories of what the people that suffer identity theft go through. The lack of the ability to get credit. This woman down in Texas who's taking care of her disabled daughter, she's going to have all kinds of problems now, and who knows what's going to happen there. So you've got a disabled girl, young girl, who's now affected by illegal immigrants.